I never thought I'd say this, but thank God I caught the bouquet at my sister's wedding, because it turned out I'd been planning her dream day all along, not mine. Let me take you back. 10 months ago, I was glowing. Blissfully, stupidly glowing. My name is Marissa. I was 29, engaged to a man I thought I knew better than anyone, Daniel, and on the verge of marrying into what I believed was the rest of my life. We'd been together 5 years. The kind of couple that other couples called goals. Matching passports, apartment filled with Polaroids, and a shared Google Drive folder titled Us Forever. Barf, I know. But it felt real. Until the day everything snapped like the pearl bracelet I wore the night he proposed. Daniel proposed in Santorini, with the kind of ring that made my fingers tremble when I held it. I said yes through tears. Ugly, messy, makeup-streaked tears. He said he loved that I didn't even try to look perfect in that moment, said it made him love me more. Which, looking back, was probably the last time he told me the truth. From there, I dove into wedding planning like it was a second job. I was that girl, mood boards, Pinterest overload, venue tours, you name it. I even color-coded the napkins based on sunset hues for our beach ceremony. Ridiculous? Maybe. But Daniel was so into it. Or so I thought. What I didn't know is that while I was obsessing over floral arrangements, my fiancé was quietly arranging something else behind my back, and it had my sister's name on it. Let me explain my sister, Kayla. She's 24. Think less, maid of honor, and more, main character in a teen drama reboot. Pretty, in that effortless, Instagram-filtered way. The kind of girl who cries when her nail breaks, but somehow never fails to land on her feet. We weren't exactly close. But she's my sister. We grew up under the same roof, dodged the same rules, and up until that year, shared a mom who always played favorite. Not that she ever admitted it. But I was the workhorse. Kayla, the princess. Still, I never thought she'd do this. One thing I'll give Daniel credit for. He knew how to act. Every dress fitting, every cake tasting, he was attentive, affectionate, and present. People used to joke he was more excited for the wedding than I was. He even insisted on handling the guest list logistics with Kayla, who had Excel genius listed on her resume for some reason. So while I planned the wedding of my dreams, they were privately constructing my worst nightmare. Red flag number 1 came at a restaurant, 8 months in. We were doing a menu tasting. Daniel stepped away to take a call, leaving his phone face down. That wasn't unusual, but something buzzed. Once. Twice. Then 5 times in a row. I glanced down and saw Kayla's name flashing across the screen. Her contact name wasn't saved as Kayla, though. It was KK locked. Weird, right? I thought maybe it was a surprise, something wedding-related. A bachelorette thing. So I didn't snoop. Not yet. God, I wish I had. Fast forward 2 more months. The dress was fitted, the RSVP cards were rolling in, and Kayla had practically moved in with us, just to help with planning. She'd sleep on our couch, wear Daniel's hoodies, and laugh at his dumbest jokes like he was the second coming of Chris Rock. I chalked it up to sibling banter. She was my sister. Until I caught them in the kitchen. Not kissing. Not touching. Worse. They were just standing there, whispering, faces inches apart, and when I walked in, they jumped apart like guilty teenagers. Kayla dropped her glass. Daniel turned red. I said nothing. My stomach flipped, but I told myself I was being paranoid. I'd been stressed. Planning a wedding wasn't easy. I was being emotional. And that right there, that's how women get screwed. We gaslight ourselves before anyone else has the chance to. Then came the final week before the wedding. My dress had been steamed. The hair trial done. Kayla and I had matching bride and MOH robes. My mom cried on FaceTime. Everything was perfect until Daniel called me while I was at my final makeup consultation. "We need to talk," he said flatly. My chest tightened. It wasn't the words. It was the tone, detached. Cold. Like someone canceling a gym membership. He told me he needed to step away from the wedding. That he had unresolved feelings. That it wasn't fair to me. Fair? 10 months of planning. Thousands of dollars. My heart, soul, and every last ounce of my sanity poured into this wedding, and he wanted to step away? I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even cry. But I choked out the question anyway. Is there someone else? Silence. Daniel, is there someone else? That's when he said it. It's Kayla. I hung up, screamed into a throw pillow until I blacked out. Then I drove straight to my sister's apartment. She didn't answer the door. Of course she didn't. Cowards rarely do. But I did what any woman whose life had just been set on fire would do. I lit a match of my own. I didn't cancel the wedding. I didn't return the dress. I didn't refund the deposit on the venue. Because if they thought I was going to disappear quietly, they were about to learn who I really was. I let the day arrive. Let the guests arrive. Let the cameras roll. And when the doors opened, I walked down that aisle. Not as a bride, but as his reckoning. There's something surreal about walking down the aisle knowing the person at the altar never expected to see you again. The air was heavy with floral perfume and anticipation. A string quartet played the exact song I had chosen, our song, the one Daniel said reminded him of how we met. Everyone stood. Phones angled upward to record a perfect moment. Except this moment wasn't his to keep anymore. He wasn't standing at the altar when the music began. Instead, Daniel was tucked backstage somewhere, probably adjusting his tie and fixing his fake smile for what was supposed to be a wedding to my sister. Yep. They didn't just call off my wedding. They took over my venue, my timeline, my date. And guess what? They didn't know I hadn't canceled anything. Let's rewind to 3 days before the wedding. After Daniel dropped the bomb about Kayla, I disappeared for 24 hours. No calls, no texts. I blocked them both. My mom, bless her codependent heart, tried to call a truce like this was some playground fight. Sweetie, things happen. It doesn't mean you can't still be happy for them. Excuse me? You want me to celebrate being dumped for my younger sister after planning the wedding they hijacked? That's when I knew something deeper was broken. So I decided, if they wanted a wedding that badly, I'd give them one. The next day, I met with the venue manager. I was shaking as I explained the situation, not because I was afraid, but because I didn't know how he'd respond. Wait, you're saying they're still going through with the event? Under your name? He asked, eyebrows raised. Yes, I said. And they're using my booking, my date, my vendors, my everything. He blinked, stunned. I want to keep the reservation, I added. But I want to change the program a bit. The venue manager stared at me. Then slowly he smiled. I've seen a lot of weddings, he said, but never one where the bride becomes the director of the apocalypse. I spent the next 48 hours planning the real wedding of a lifetime. Not of love, but of truth. First, I called the videographer. Then the DJ. Then the AV techs. I told them all the same thing. There's been a slight change in schedule. They were surprisingly cooperative. Turns out, people love a little drama, especially when it's paid in full. The final touch? A pre-recorded video. I wrote it like a script, practiced it once, recorded it on my phone. No makeup, no filter, just me and the truth. Then I handed it to the AV tech. Play this as soon as I give the signal. Back to the day. The guests were arriving, dressed in their finest. Most assumed I had called the wedding off and Daniel was just being brave, moving forward. Only a handful of people knew the truth. I kept my circle tight. My 2 closest friends sat near the front, nervously glancing between me and the program that still had my name printed on it. Then the whispers started. Because when I entered through the side doors, not in a gown, but in a sleek white jumpsuit and blood-red lipstick, people noticed. I looked like vengeance bottled in bridal chic. And I was walking straight toward the altar. Daniel wasn't out yet. Neither was Kayla. The officiant looked confused. He stammered as I approached. Marissa, are you? Yes, I said, calm as ever. I'm the bride. Someone gasped. I smiled sweetly at the crowd, then turned toward the AV booth and gave a little nod. The music cut. The screen behind the altar lit up. My face appeared, raw, tear-streaked, but composed. Hi. If you're here today, you were probably invited to celebrate what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. You were supposed to see me marry the man I loved, the man I spent 5 years with, the man I trusted. But that man, Daniel, chose to sleep with someone else. Not just anyone. My sister. Q gasps. And instead of telling the truth, instead of canceling the event, they tried to repurpose my wedding. My date. My venue. My vendors. My timeline. They used my love like a blueprint and expected me to vanish. So, here I am. The room was dead silent. Then, somewhere in the back, a chair scraped against the floor. Daniel emerged, tie crooked, hair disheveled, and red in the face. Marissa, what the hell are you doing? I turned to face him, microphone in hand. Just telling the truth, Daniel. Something you're unfamiliar with. Then Kayla appeared behind him, in a white gown. The audacity. Her face twisted when she saw me. This is insane, she hissed. Is it? I said. You hijacked my wedding. You betrayed your own sister. You thought you could bury me under the same veil I picked out for myself. I walked toward them slowly. You both wanted a wedding? Congratulations. Now the world knows what it cost. Daniel looked like he wanted to crawl out of his own skin. Kayla opened her mouth to respond, but a woman from the third row stood up first. It was Aunt Veronica. Never liked her, but she turned out to be useful. So that's why your name was still on the invitations, she said. Another guest stood up. Then another. Like dominoes, people started walking out, muttering, shaking their heads. One of Daniel's college friends actually high-fived me on the way past. Within 5 minutes, half the room was gone. I turned back to the guests who remained. Thank you for coming. There's no wedding reception today, but there is an open bar and a spectacular truth hangover. The DJ, who apparently had no moral loyalty to anyone but drama, hit play on Beyoncé's Best Thing I Never Had. I dropped the mic and walked out, heels clicking, head held high. Outside, the sky had clouded over. I stood at the edge of the venue's steps and breathed in. It didn't feel like victory. Not yet. But it didn't feel like loss either. It felt like release. Daniel and Kayla would never forget this day. Not because of love. Not because of cake or vows or sparkler exits. But because I burned their perfect little lie to the ground, with their audience watching. And I wasn't done yet. I didn't post the video. I didn't need to. By the time I got home that night, 3 different TikToks had already hit over 100K views. One of them filmed by a teenager sitting 3 rows back at the ceremony. In the background, you could hear someone whisper, "Wait, isn't that the real bride?" Then came the gasp, the slow pan to Kayla in her gown, the chaos. The moment I walked out like a queen exiting her own ruined palace, heels sharp, lipstick sharper. And just like that, my humiliation turned into a spectacle, a digital bonfire, and the world couldn't look away. The next morning, I woke up to a phone that looked like it had caught fire overnight. Dings. Alerts. Messages. Missed calls. My best friend Alyssa had texted me 10 times in a row. You're on Reddit. You're literally trending. You have a new fan page. I'm not even kidding. I opened the app. Someone had uploaded the wedding video, with captions, dramatic music, and the words, "Sister stole her wedding. Watch what the real bride does," in bold font. 4 million views. I sat on the edge of my bed, eyes wide, heart pounding, trying to figure out whether to cry or laugh or scream. I did all 3. But here's where it got really interesting. It wasn't just trolls or gossip accounts who chimed in. It was women. Hundreds. Thousands. Comment after comment poured in. This is every betrayed woman's fantasy. You turned heartbreak into public art. SHE is the blueprint. Never let a man, or your sister, play you like that again. I was being hailed as a folk hero. The woman who didn't just get cheated on. She clapped back in couture. And just like that, the power shifted. Daniel tried to reach me. Of course he did. First through text. "Can we talk? Please don't do anything else." It wasn't supposed to go like this. I didn't respond. So he emailed me. A long, drawn-out attempt to play the victim. "I never meant to hurt you. You were so busy with the wedding. I didn't know how to say I wasn't ready. Kayla, and I didn't plan to fall in love. I deleted it. He wasn't in love. He was in convenience, in comfort, in cowardice. But what Daniel failed to understand, what they both failed to grasp, was that I wasn't some wilted flower. I was now public property in the best way. The internet had chosen me, and I wasn't about to waste the momentum. Then Kayla reached out. 3 days after the video exploded, she showed up at my apartment door in tears, wearing the same hoodie she probably stole from Daniel, makeup smudged, voice hoarse. Marissa, please. I messed up. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I stared at her. For a moment, I saw the sister I grew up with, the one who used to braid my hair, steal my clothes, roll her eyes during family dinners. But then I remembered her face in the wedding gown. How smug she looked. How sure she was that I'd just vanish. You didn't mess up, I said. You made a choice. She sniffled. It's all over the internet. I can't even leave my house. People are calling me a homewrecker. I tilted my head. Aren't you? Silence. I didn't think it would hurt this much, she whispered. Well, I said, you always said I was too dramatic. Guess I rubbed off on you. Then I closed the door. The media requests started coming in the next week. Podcast invites. Daytime talk shows. Influencers asking to collab. A documentary producer even emailed me about turning the wedding exposé into a mini-series. I didn't say yes to everything. But I did say yes to one podcast, a women-led true story show called Exes and Exposures. It wasn't about fame. It was about control. For the first time, I had full narrative power. I wasn't the girl who got left at the altar. I was the woman who reclaimed her story. And I was just getting started. But not everyone was cheering for me. My mom stopped speaking to me entirely. She called it a selfish display and accused me of tearing the family apart, which was rich, considering her other daughter hijacked my wedding like a clearance sale. You embarrassed all of us, she texted. No, Kayla and Daniel embarrassed themselves, I replied. You didn't have to go public. They did that the second they tried to steal a wedding with 200 guests and thought no one would notice. She left me on read. Fine by me. I had new family now, strangers on the internet who would throw hands for me faster than any blood relative ever had. Then came the twist I didn't expect. A message from someone I hadn't heard from in over 6 years. Hi Marissa. You don't know me personally, but I knew Daniel in college. And I think you should see this. Attached was a folder. Screenshots. Photos. Conversations from years ago. Turns out, Daniel had a habit. A pattern. He'd been cheating on me long before Kayla. A different girl every year or so. Always someone close to me. A mutual friend. A coworker. Once, even a bridesmaid from our friend's wedding. My mouth went dry. I felt sick. But I also felt free. Because now I knew this was never about Kayla being irresistible or me not being enough. This was about a man who was never capable of real commitment. A man who wore loyalty like a rented tux, perfectly fitted, until the moment he had to return it. So I did what any woman with receipts and internet rage would do. I dropped it. All of it. No names. No direct accusations. Just one Instagram story slide. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time. Attached, a photo of the screenshots, blurred just enough to avoid legal drama, but clear enough for Daniel to recognize every word. The comments exploded. Speculation. Outrage. Support. Daniel's name started trending for all the wrong reasons. By the end of the week, he'd gone private on all platforms and released a cringy statement about mental health and healing. Kayla deactivated completely. But me? I was just getting started. I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted evolution. So I launched something new, a blog, a channel, a platform. A place for women to share their stories. Weddings gone wrong. Friendships betrayed. Families' secrets exposed. I called it The Real Vow. And the tagline? Before you say, I do, know who they really are. Daniel thought he was erasing me when he cut me out. Kayla thought she was winning when she stepped in. What they both forgot is that you can't replace a woman who built the whole damn foundation. Especially not one who keeps the receipts and the venue contract. They don't tell you what comes after you win. Not in these stories. Not when the smoke clears. No one prepares you for what it feels like to walk into a grocery store and hear someone whisper your name in aisle 6. To have baristas smile a little too knowingly when they hand over your drink. To realize your heartbreak became somebody's popcorn night. It had been 3 weeks since the wedding reveal heard round the internet, and my life had been split in two. There was before, where I planned a wedding with the man I loved. And after, where strangers called me a queen, a savage, a hero, and sometimes, when the trolls got brave, an attention seeker who must have known all along. But the truth? The truth was messier. I was alone. I was exhausted. And I was still haunted by a question I hadn't let myself ask since that day. What if I hadn't walked in when I did? What if they'd actually gone through with it? I was lying awake one night, scrolling through DMs, most of them supportive, a few unhinged. Then I saw a message request from someone I hadn't heard from in almost 2 years. Evelyn, my old therapist. We stopped working together when I moved cities. Amicably, no drama. She'd always been kind, grounding, the type of woman who listened with her whole body. I almost deleted the message, unsure if I wanted to go backward. But I opened it. Marissa, I saw what happened. You don't have to respond. I just want you to know I'm proud of how you stood up for yourself. But I also hope you're letting yourself feel what came after. Her words gutted me. Because that was the thing. I hadn't let myself feel anything since the video went live. I had monetized the pain, structured it, branded it. But grief doesn't care about virality. It creeps up when you're brushing your teeth. When your playlist shuffles to your song. When you see a stupid meme and think, Daniel would have loved this, before remembering Daniel is human trash and deserves internet exile. I started seeing Evelyn again. Just once a week. Quietly. It felt strange, like admitting I wasn't as invincible as the comments made me out to be. But it also felt good. She reminded me that revenge, no matter how satisfying, isn't closure. And that being strong doesn't mean skipping grief. It means walking through it without pretending it doesn't hurt. A few days later, I got a message I didn't expect. Not from Kayla. Not from Daniel. From my dad. He and my mom had split when I was 17. I stayed with mom. Kayla spent more time with dad. Over the years, we drifted. He'd send birthday texts, sometimes a check at Christmas, but that was it. Until now. Heard you made headlines, kiddo. You always did have flair. Wanna get lunch? At first, I was skeptical. This man had never shown much interest in my life, let alone my relationships. But something about the timing, maybe I just needed a parent. Any parent. So I said yes. We met at a quiet diner, the kind with vinyl booths and silver napkin dispensers. He was already sitting when I arrived, nursing black coffee, like it owed him something. You look good, he said. Considering. Considering what? I asked. He chuckled. Considering the wedding explosion. Don't worry, I'm not here to lecture. I relaxed a little. I guess you saw the video, I said. Whole internet did. He sipped his coffee. You looked calm. Scary calm. Like your mom used to get when she was done pretending. That hit me. She thinks I overreacted, I muttered. She always hated it when you took up space, he replied. Especially if it wasn't the space she picked. I blinked. It was the first time anyone in my family had ever acknowledged that dynamic, that quiet favoritism, that unspoken rule that Kayla was the angel and I was the project. Why now? I asked. Why reach out? He leaned forward. Because I saw something in you that day. You reminded me of your grandmother, sharp, fearless, a little terrifying. And I realized, I don't want to be the kind of dad who watches from the sidelines anymore. I didn't cry, but I wanted to. Later that week, I did something I hadn't done in months. I painted. Not because someone commissioned it. Not because it would get likes. Just for me. It was messy and abstract and probably awful. But it felt like exhaling after holding my breath for too long. I realized something. I had let Kayla and Daniel shrink me. Even after the revenge. Even after the applause. I'd been living in reaction to their betrayal, not in creation of something new that had to change. So I wrote a post. Not a clapback. Not a pity monologue. Just the truth. The wedding wasn't just stolen. It was mourned. And healing isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it's eating cereal at 3 a.m. because you can't sleep. Sometimes it's unfollowing someone you used to love. Sometimes it's choosing peace, not pettiness, even when you really want to be petty. But healing is also this. Realizing your story isn't over. It's just getting better editors. The post went viral. Again. But this time, it wasn't the drama people clung to. It was the hope. Then, just when I thought things were finally calming down, the universe delivered one final plot twist. I was at a local art event, low-key, nothing flashy, when a woman in her 40s approached me. "You're Marissa, right?" she asked. "Yes. I'm Leah. I work in programming for a gallery downtown. We've been following your story and your art. I think we'd like to feature your work." I stared at her. "Are you sure? I mean, my art's not exactly what people came for." She smiled. "They came for the fire. But some of us stayed for the spark." And that's how I learned the real revenge wasn't the viral moment. It was the rebuild. The quiet redefinition of self after the destruction. The reclamation of a story no one thought I'd survive, let alone own. Daniel and Kayla? They disappeared from public life. Moved to another city. Rebranded as private people. Rumors say they're still together. Some say they split. I don't care. Because the real glow-up was mine. There are some rooms you think you'll never walk into again. Some faces you're sure you'll never see again. Not because you can't, but because you refuse. But life, or fate, or karma, whatever you want to call it, sometimes has a flair for dramatic irony. One minute you're sipping wine in peace, rebuilding your world, and the next, you're walking into a charity gala face-to-face with the man who broke you. Only now, you're the one holding the mic. 3 months had passed since the wedding fiasco. My name had stopped trending. The DMs quieted down. The world had moved on. Or, at least, it looked that way on the surface. But behind the scenes, I was rebuilding. My art had finally found its spotlight. The Real Vow, my storytelling platform, had gained traction faster than I ever imagined. I wasn't famous, exactly. But I was known, respected, maybe even feared. That's when the invite came. A handwritten envelope. Gold script. High-end. It was for the Artemis Fund Gala, a major event raising money for women-owned businesses and creatives. I was listed as an honoree. They wanted to feature a few pieces of mine. Even better, a speaking opportunity. I should have felt proud. But instead, my stomach twisted the second I saw the list of corporate donors on the back. Harrison and Vale Group. Daniel's firm. The company he'd clawed his way into during our relationship. The same one I had helped him prep interview pitches for over late-night ramen and good faith. I almost said no. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way my heart didn't break when I saw his name. Or maybe I just needed to prove, one last time, that I wasn't scared of him anymore. The night of the gala was surreal. Silk dresses. Crystal chandeliers. Everyone sipping overpriced cocktails, networking in designer heels. And there I was, fitted in a deep navy gown, neckline sharp, heel sharper. Alyssa came with me as my plus one. The second we stepped into the main room, her eyes locked on something across the floor. "He's here," she whispered. I didn't flinch. "Of course he is," I said. "This place is crawling with old money and big egos. He probably thinks this is his redemption arc." She snorted. "He's got another thing coming." I looked up, and there he was. Daniel. 3 tables down. Clean-shaven. Expensive suit. Hair a little thinner, but still holding on to that fake charm like it was a lifeline. And next to him, Kayla. Wearing champagne silk like she belonged there. They hadn't seen me yet. I almost turned away, but then the MC's voice echoed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next featured speaker, artist, advocate, and founder of The Real Vow, Marissa Ale." I walked toward the stage without looking at them. Each step was deliberate. Measured. Powerful. The room quieted.
"Good evening," I said.
3 months ago, I stood in a different room, not unlike this one, but with a very different energy. A few people shifted in their seats. They knew I was supposed to be a bride. Instead, I became a footnote in someone else's fantasy, or so they thought. But betrayal doesn't define you. What you do with it does. I paused. Tonight, I'm not here because I survived a scandal. I'm here because I built something out of it. Because women like me, like you, deserve more than recovery. We deserve rebirth. Applause. To every woman who's ever been underestimated, stolen from, silenced. This platform is yours now, too. The room erupted. And in the middle of it all, I met Daniel's eyes. He was staring, stone-faced, almost pale. Kayla? She looked like she'd swallowed glass. I smiled. Then I stepped off stage and walked straight past them without breaking stride. They cornered me at the bar 20 minutes later. Daniel first. Marissa. I turned slowly. Daniel. Still pretending to be a decent human being?
His jaw tightened.
That speech, was that all for show? No, I said calmly. But you showing up tonight? That was. He glanced around nervously. Look, I didn't know you'd be here. Of course not. You've never paid attention to the details. Why start now? Then Kayla approached. Can we talk? She said, quieter. I turned to her. Are you going to apologize again? Or is this another PR move? She opened her mouth, then closed it. I didn't expect you to become this big. That's the problem, I said. You never expected me to become anything without him. They didn't get the moment they were hoping for. No reconciliation. No public forgiveness. Just silence. And me walking away. But the real twist came after the gala. A producer from a major streaming platform had been in the audience. She introduced herself as Ava. Said she'd been following my story from the beginning, the viral video, the platform I built, the community that formed around it. We think your story has legs, she said. Not just as content, but as a movement. She wanted to turn the real vow into a documentary. Real stories, real voices, hosted by me. I was speechless. You want me to host it? Who better? Ava said. You didn't just go through it. You rose through it. I said yes. Of course I did. But I didn't do it for fame or vindication. I did it because for every woman like me, there were thousands more still suffering in silence. And if my story could be the match that lit someone else's freedom, then the fire had been worth it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. We started filming interviews. Women came forward with stories that shattered and inspired me. Some had been cheated on. Some emotionally abused. Some gaslit for years. But all of them shared one thing. They weren't victims anymore. They were warriors. Then, just before the pilot wrapped, I got a letter. A real one. Not an email. Not a DM. It was from a woman named Emily. She didn't say where she was from, just that she'd watched my speech at the gala online. She wrote, I was going to marry a man who made me feel small. Then I saw what you did. And I realized I don't want a life I have to shrink for. I canceled the wedding. I moved out. I finally took back my voice. Thank you for reminding me I deserved better. I read it 3 times. Then I cried. Not because I was sad, but because this was it. The real win. Daniel faded into digital obscurity. His firm distanced themselves. Kayla tried to rebrand as a wellness coach, but the internet never forgot. I moved cities. Started over. Not to hide, but to expand. People still recognize me sometimes. They whisper. Smile. Ask if I'm the girl who exposed the wedding fraud. And I smile back. Because I am. But I'm also so much more. If you had told me a year ago that betrayal would be the thing to change my life, I would have laughed. Or cried. Or maybe both. Because back then, I was just Marissa, daughter, sister, fiancé. The woman planning the wedding of her dreams. The one color-coding table linens and drafting seating charts and saying things like, do you think peonies are too predictable? Back then, I had no idea the story I was in. I thought I was writing a love story. I didn't realize I was writing a revolution. The day our documentary premiered, I wore white. Not wedding white. Not that fragile, hopeful shade. I wore a stark, blazing ivory. Structured. Regal. A power suit that said, I survived the fire, and I built something with the ashes. The premiere was private. A theater rented out for the cast, crew, some early supporters. Alyssa sat beside me, practically vibrating with pride. Evelyn, my therapist, was there too. She smiled as the lights dimmed and the screen lit up. The real vow, unveiled. I watched myself on screen, reliving those moments, the glass in my hand, the gasp in my throat, the icy walk down that wedding aisle that wasn't mine. I thought it would break me to see it again. But it didn't. I wasn't reliving trauma. I was reclaiming it. The film opened to rave reviews. The platform doubled in size within days. Major outlets covered it, not as gossip, but as impact. Women started sharing their stories again. Some wrote essays. Others sent voice notes. A few just sent photos of new apartments, new haircuts, new selves. Freedom, one frame at a time. And then came the moment that sealed everything. It was a panel event, one of those post-screening talks hosted by the production company. Intimate crowd, maybe 80 people in a black box theater downtown. I was scheduled to speak last. One by one, survivors told their truths. I watched, heart full, as women stood up in heels and hijabs and hoodies to say, me too, but I rose too. Then the host called me up. You built a movement, Marissa, she said. But I have to ask, would you go through it all again, knowing what you know now? I smiled slowly, took the mic. No, I said, and the room got quiet. Because I don't believe pain should be the price we pay for power. I don't believe betrayal should be a woman's origin story. But would I use what happened to help other women rise? Again and again and again. Yes. Applause swelled. Not polite. Not reserved. Thunderous. Backstage, a woman approached me. Late 40s, soft eyes, hands clasped nervously. You don't know me, she said. But I followed your story from the beginning. She introduced herself as Camilla, a lawyer, divorcee, quietly rebuilding her life after a toxic marriage no one had believed was abusive because he never hit her. Just controlled, isolated, manipulated. Your story gave me language, she whispered, and that gave me courage. I hugged her, tight, and in that moment I knew this wasn't just a revenge story.
It was a lifeline.
My mother never apologized. She never called, never wrote. I heard through extended family that she blamed the whole scandal on me. But something strange happened. At Thanksgiving that year, hosted by Alyssa's family, who'd unofficially adopted me, Kayla showed up. She didn't speak at first, just hovered near the edge of the backyard, like she didn't quite know where she belonged. Eventually, I walked over. We stood in silence for a long time, the autumn wind tugging at her curls. Then she said, You're stronger than I thought. I didn't reply. She added, I'm not happy, you know. I thought I would be, but I'm not. Still, I said nothing. Finally, I'm sorry I stole your wedding. That made me laugh. You didn't steal it, I said. You inherited a disaster. That day wasn't a wedding. It was a sinking ship. She bit her lip. Would you ever forgive me? I thought about it. Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, I said. But I don't carry hate for you anymore. Just distance. She nodded. And for once, she didn't ask for more than I was willing to give. I sold my old wedding dress. The boutique had a buyback program, not for resale, but for donation to costume departments and design schools. They called it the Phoenix Program. I smiled when I heard that. Seemed fitting. I packaged it carefully, not bitter, not angry. Just grateful to finally let go. In the final episode of the documentary's second season, I read viewer letters aloud. Some were funny. Some were devastating. One was just a list of goals from a 19-year-old girl who wrote, I'm going to college, I'm staying single, and I'm never letting a man use my softness against me. I closed the episode with one final thought. They thought I was planning a wedding. I was really building a fortress. They thought replacing me would silence me. But I'm louder now than I've ever been. And to every woman out there wondering if she should stay quiet, don't. Your voice might just be the thing that saves someone else. People still ask what I'd say to Daniel now. I wouldn't say anything. I'd just let him watch me win. From the sidelines. Where he belongs.